Good morning, good morning, my thrifty, artsy family and friends. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Monday morning live. I have got um, a review video planned for you guys today. Today, we are taking a look at the fifth generation artist level solid watercolors by Paul Rubens. Um, Dubbed their Youlan line, 24 half pans, and we're going to be cracking into that in just a moment. So today we are looking at the Paul Rubens fifth generation artist level solid watercolors. This is 24 half pans in their newly designed or one of their newly designed tins. Now I'll go ahead and let you know that this tin does come in either black and gold or pink and then sort of offy silvery color. I do not have both sets. I just happen to have this one in studio, and it was a product that was gifted to the studio via Deca. So thank you very much for your continued support. The paints come in a corrugated two-piece box, pretty sleekly designed. There are Chinese letters on the front, so you really don't understand it there. There is the new Paul Rubens logo because, as you know, they have switched from the image of the Paul Rubens man to this image of an eye. And I have yet to determine what type of animal that is. I think it's a bird, possibly an eagle, maybe an owl. Not sure if it's an owl, not sure what it is. If somebody knows what that new bird image that Paul Rubens is using for their logo is, by all means, do let us know. But I don't know. I want to say it's an owl. I really do. That's kind of the feel it gives me, but no longer the Mr. Paul Rubens man. Okay, on the side it says Rubens, and this is their Youlan 24 watercolors. The opposite side basically says the same thing. And if you flip the box over on the back, you're going to find lots of information. A lot of it is in Asian or Chinese characters, so you won't be able to make that out. But what you can make out is that they are manufactured by Aowen's Art, which I stress all the time. Aowen's Art is the manufacturer that produces the Paul Rubens line of watercolors. They're the same manufacturers that produce the Mealing Pretty Excellent line of watercolors. They actually have their own watercolors, the Owens watercolor line, which was on the American market for a few months, about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. Then it was pulled off of Amazon, and the only place you can find it at that point was AliExpress. And then even here lately on AliExpress, I have not been able to locate the actual Owens Art line of watercolors, but I'm going to keep looking because I really want to get those into the studio. Now, based on some videos that I've watched from other YouTube artists like Lindsay, who did review the Owens art line about a year and a half ago, her comparison put them super, super close to the Mealing Pretty Excellent. Even so close that maybe the Mealing was a rebrand of the actual Owens watercolor line. And when I say rebrand, I don't mean that Owens Art makes all of those lines. So it's not like anybody is white labeling anything. It's all literally coming out of the same factory, which is why you find so many similar qualities between those three brands of paint. That's just a little FYI. Let's see what else. It lets you know that it's in the watercolor paint category, that there's 24 of them. Guaranteed quality guarantee period. Now, this is interesting because it was a product that we looked at maybe last live where it said it had a shelf life. I want to say it was the Hemi watercolors. When we were kind of unboxing them last live, we ran across some information that said it had a shelf life of 3 years. And I was kind of baffled. Some of you guys were kind of baffled because it wasn't something that we typically see printed on watercolor information. Where here again, there is a quality guarantee period of 3 years, which is essentially saying shelf life of 3 years. So it's becoming my speculation that in the Asian market, evidently they have to put a guarantee, like a freshness guarantee, on the paints, which of course they translate over when they do all the packaging into English for the United States market or maybe for European markets. So I just find that that's really interesting because I've gone back to check to see if any of the American produced watercolors actually put that type of information on their packaging. And surprisingly enough, I have not found any quality guarantee or any shelf life period on any packages from watercolors produced here. Daniel Smith, Core, excuse me, a couple of others. So I just think that that's really, really interesting. I need to go back. There's a new line of watercolors called Tonic out, and I want to go check their packaging and see if they have a shelf life. Because if I'm not mistaken, they're produced in the U.S. as well. But more about that a couple of videos down the line. It does let you know it conforms to the ASTM D 4236 regulation, and it actually gives you the manufacturer, Aon Zinghai Rubens Technology Company. So all of those intertwined. You have a dealer phone number, you have a website, um, which is poundsart.com, which I always thought was so interesting. It's not paulrubens.com, it's not million.com, it's not owensart.com, anything like that. It's actually Owens at poundsart.com is the email, and the website being poundsart.com. I always thought that was really interesting. Now, some QR codes here on the back. I did try to scan one of them. It didn't do anything for me. One of them took me to a site that was full of Chinese characters, so I really didn't understand anything, and there wasn't an option to translate it to English. So, um, and then there's a warning down here about prevention of accidental ingestion, because I do believe that Paul Rubens is one of the few companies that may still be using real cads, real cobalts, some other pigments that, if ingested, may not be the healthiest thing, that wouldn't necessarily be considered non-toxic, which is why you don't see that stamped on this particular set. So let's open it up here. Again, corrugated box, flip the lid open, very sturdy. You can definitely use that box for storing things. It'll be great for storing like pencils, brushes, and all that hoo-ha in, if you're not going to keep your paints in there. And I'm going to get to all of that shortly. So inside the package, you get a brochure. And the brochures have been, redesigned from the original Paul Rubens brochures, which is perfectly fine. You do get the same image that you typically get on the very inside of each leaflet when you get it with anything produced by the A. Owens Art Factory, be it Paul Rubens, be it Youlan, be it Owens Art Watercolors. You're going to get a digital swatching chart of the complete line of colors. And like I said, this is their newest rendition of their artist watercolors. Now, let it be known that I have always been a huge fan of all of their artists' products. I currently have the original 24 half pan set, which we're going to talk about that shortly. I have the Paul Rubens Candy Colors, which is a professional set that is exclusive to the Asian market, which I was lucky enough to get my hands on, test and review on the channel a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years back. And those will actually be making a debut in Thrifty Pastel Month. So you can look forward to seeing those Paul Ruben Candy Color Professional Watercolors coming up soon. Now, this digital swatch sheet is going to be in Chinese characters. So the only thing you're really going to be able to make out from it is going to be the stock number assigned to each color, as well as the pigment number. Now, without being able to read the lettering, there's a star rating system here, so you can naturally assume that that is their light fast ratings. And then there's also squares, which contain complete colored, partially colored, or no coloring at all, which lets you know that that is the transparency rating. So the relative information is on the leaflet, although the writing itself is in Asian, which is no big deal. I am really digging the redesign of the logo. Really, really digging it. All right. So you also get a swatch sheet. I am not sure exactly, you know, I'm guessing. This paper has a glitter texture or glitter in it. Now, I actually have another product of Paul Rubens, which I've shown you guys before. It is their actual glitter watercolor paper. It is 100% cotton. It's 140 pounds, and it actually has a glitter to it. They make it in both a cold press version as well as a hot press version. It is my belief that the cold press version, this particular sheet here, I don't know if you can see the shine in that paper, the mica uh, or whatever they're using to make it glitter, mica more than likely. Um, it's actually the same effect that you get from this particular paper with the swatch sheet, which is why I'm believing that it is the same paper that they produce in the individual packs, which is always a good thing. And, kind of standard across professional companies, you'll find that when they put their swatch sheets in the watercolor palettes, they will include a paper that's manufactured by them versus getting a budget set of paints where the swatch sheet may be a completely different branded type of paper from paper that's included in that particular starter kit or paper that they sell individually. So here on your swatch sheet, you are going to get, once again, stock numbers associated with the colors, the actual pigment numbers. There is no light fast rating on the included swatch sheet, but they do have the color names printed in English, which is a really great thing. And you get the pigment numbers really big and bold. So just in case you have visual issues, it's not tiny as far as the pigments are concerned. And it's a really decent watercolor paper. I've painted on this glitter paper quite a few times, and I really like it. It's kind of precious though. Seriously, it's glitter paper. It's kind of precious. The paints are wrapped as standard. You would expect Paul Rubens. There's always a cloth of some type wrapping their half pans. They spare no expense, in my opinion, on the professional presentation of their professional products. Actually, of all their products, they all have. I'm a sucker for really nice branding. Whereas one of the reasons I like Christy Rice's Paint Crush is because the branding is just so appealing to me, but it's appealing to me on the really poppy, in your face, bold color, bold, bright art. Whereas for me, Paul Ruben's branding is almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. Really straightforward, really sleek, really clean, really professional branding that's still popping to the eye and catches your attention. So when you pull this bad baby out, nothing. See, you can use the box for whatever. You are going to get a beautiful tin. I am in love with the way this tin looks. There is a thumb ring on the back in case you decide to do on the go painting. I have always found these things to be really flimsy. Um, so even when I'm painting outside, if I was to take a palette this size, I would probably have it sitting on something. Okay, so 10 latches decently. I'll be honest, it surprised me that the latching on it wasn't as secure as some other tins I've tried. With that being said, uh, if yours doesn't latch all that well, you can take like pliers or whatever and just ever so slightly bend that lip in. But it's doing okay. I can turn it upside down without it opening, so I'm pretty cool with that. The inside, you're going to get the Rubens logo again. You get 4 standard medium-sized mixing wells with another fold-out lip, which has 5 indentations. Standard 10. The only difference is they put beautiful graphic printing on it. So it wouldn't just be your standard black 10. You have a removable insert tray as usual with these. As I've always told you guys, there is additional mixing wells on the bottom of your tin. You can utilize that. Absolutely utilize that. Hey, View, 24 half pans that are in your adjustable clamp type palette. All right. You can remove those half pans. You're going to get your standard, and I want to say liquid poured. I do not believe these are machine cut. Um, they just look like they were poured from a liquid. They're even, but not quite. Some of them came with just ever so slight indentions in the middle, as if though the formula or the liquid had settled. So I definitely believe that they're liquid poured, and they are pretty full. Nothing written on the actual pan itself, though. All right. Beautiful colors. Absolutely bright colors from the jump. What I love about Paul Rubens and a lot of other professional paints is one of the easier ways to tell it's a professional line is that you cannot automatically look at some of the colors and tell what they are. When you get a budget set of paints, or when you get a more economical set of paints that may be boost with dyes or maybe boost with optical brighteners, you will notice that you can look at the pans and automatically almost tell what color it should be or what family is in. Whereas here, if you look at the blues and the greens, unless you swatch them out, you may not necessarily be able to tell what it is by just looking at it. One indicative quality of a lot of professional paints. I just wanted to point that out. Beautiful formulation. I think the consistency across all the pans was really, really cool. Listen, they are not semi-moist, but they do not take a lot to reactivate in wet. One quick spray, they're ready to go. There were some times when I painted with them without pre-wetting them and simply used the water or the wetness from my brush, and they were ready to go. So I didn't have any issues with any re-wetting at all. Let's take a look at the swatch sheet, which I did do inside the Painter's Color Diary. This is 100% cotton watercolor paper that has been formed into a swatch and color diary. I have several of these, and here we go. It just helps me keep all of my swatch sheets organized. Well, unless I'm doing like a student grade paint, then it's a completely different story. Anywho, I swatched them all out. They were beautiful on this 100% cotton paper. Now, the original layer, if you've been following me for a while, you know it is super watery. And then I actually build glaze layers on top of it in order to test opacity and to test the depth saturation can build too. The original layer, the really watery layers. Now, there was a bit of a shift as they dry. They did not lose total pigmentation. It wasn't really huge, but if you've been testing or if you've been using watercolors for a while, your eye just sort of notice certain things automatically. So, in really watery washes, they do have a bit of a shift. But as I tell you about many watercolors, that's normal. Wasn't something that just really took me off guard. As I started to glaze, I noticed that they still stayed really transparent and really clean. I didn't have any goopiness on my brush. I didn't have any sedimentation, any grit, any type of extra filler that you would normally get in some paints that I felt the need to mix the paint out on the palette before I could take it to my paper. I was really able to paint directly from pan to paper in a lot of situations, and I was really pleased with that. The paints will definitely hold their saturation and mass tone. Did not experience a huge color shift with mass tone colors, so I was really pleased with that. There's a pretty robust range of colors here. You are able to pull a split primary mixing set from the paints if you needed to, on top of there being convenience colors as well. Now, what I wanted to do when I first noticed that was start to pay attention to see how many of these pigments were dual or triple pigments. To my surprise, to my pleasant surprise, there are very few dual colors in here. Pretty much everything is single pigment. I was thrilled by that, but it's Paul Rubens. Their first rendition, their first 24 half pan rendition that I'm still in love with was pretty much single pigment as well. Few dual pigments, but not many. And so I was really happy to see that repeated in this generation, which I think the original one I have may have been their second generation of paints, and this is the fifth generation. So I'm really happy to see them keeping that quality consistency as they continue to release or improve on their paints. So was really, really happy with that. You'll notice that the only thing that gets a little opaque is the earth yellow, which is their rendition of yellow ochre at PY42, which is expected from that particular earth tone. All of your earthy tones will get a little bit more opaque. But other than that, especially in the lighter range, everything stays super transparent. Now, there isn't a real dark saturated black. There's an ivy black in here, PBK9. You can get some saturation with it with layering, but don't expect like gouache opacity from it. And then, of course, I was really pleased with the fact that they did not give us a throwaway white. There is no mixing white in the set. Instead, they gave us a Naples yellow. A Naples yellow is what I believe they replaced the white with anyway, because you have a Naples yellow, a lemon yellow, a cad yellow light, and then a chrome yellow deep, which is a hue. So there are some hue pigments in the set. But if you bag up just one, you get a cad yellow light and it doesn't say hue. So it's, my assumption that they are still, maybe they're transitioning over to some synthetic pigments, but they're taking time to do it, so that they can make sure that there's not a quality difference between uh, the original pigment versus the synthetic one that they're producing. Which is why, in my opinion, I'm speculating that some colors have made the jump to hue, while some of them may still contain the original cad and cobalt pigments. Just my speculation on the whole thing. Let's see here. The colors are cutesy. There are artist names here, Naples yellow, lemon yellow, cad yellow light, chrome yellow, chrome orange, cad red. So you do have standard artist names. They didn't get cutesy on me. I really appreciate that. Um, Other than, like their ultramarine is called French blue instead of French ultramarine or just ultramarine. Their Prussian blue PB27 is called Berlin blue, excuse me. You have an oriental green in the set, which is PG7, which is phthalo green. So, I mean, there are a few cutesy names, but for the most part, the set contains artist names. And I say cutesy, but that's not necessarily the right word because they're still artist names. These are just the artist names that are used in different markets for the same colors that we have certain names for. So there we have that. There's a cobalt turquoise dark in this set, which is absolutely an amazing granulating green. So while we're on that, let's talk about the granulating colors. French blue, cobalt turquoise, um, hmm, translucent turquoise, the earth tones had just a bit of texture to them, not much. Surprisingly enough, the CADs didn't give me, like the CAD red light. I would expect it to be a tad bit granulating, but it wasn't in comparison to sets like, say, Rosa Gallery, where all of their CAD colors in that set granulate beautifully. Like you don't need to buy a granulating set of watercolors if you have that Rosa Gallery set, because there are 4 or 5 colors in there that give you beautiful granulation, and you can mix all the other colors with those in order to force them to granulate as well. So I was actually a little surprised by that, but there you have that. Let's take a look at some of the testing that was done with them. Now, this was done on Patreon inside the creation station when I originally kind of swatched this and unboxed it. And my original idea was that I was going to put together a video and kind of rip that unboxing and swatching from that Patreon video in order to do this review. But I decided to do this review live. So here we have this. Now, let's just sit these here so you can see where we're going. So we did some swatching, we did some color mixing, I did some testing. I was really excited as I went through this. Now, I was so excited that I started doing types of tests that I don't typically do. So here I literally did a split primary color wheel. Now pay no attention to the fact that my segments are not divided up symmetrically. That's my business. What Tabitha Brown says, it's my business. No, seriously though. It's yeah, just pay no attention. I don't know. I was having a moment. Either way, I got the color wheel in. Those colors mix so beautifully. As I said, you can get a split primary. So you're going to get warm in the yellow red, warm in the yellow, warm in the yellow, warm in a cool red, warm in a cool yellow, warm in a cool blue. All of them can be single pigment, literally. That's how well rounded this set is. Love that. Even if you wanted to put together like a 12 color mixing set from here, you could narrow this down to just 12 half pans and they would all be single pigment. Think about that for a second. If you wanted to narrow it down to just a 6 set mixing set that you were going to take on a go with you, you were going to make a to-go palette with, you could do that and they would all be single pigment. That's pretty impressive, I have to say. Colors blended together really beautifully. There was a very nice flow to them. Wet into wet works super well, and we're going to take some look at some illustrations that I did with them in just a moment, and I'll just kind of go over some things there. Now here I did a blend test in order for us to do a lift test together. They are blended together really well. There's no issue, right? There's no fight and balance when the colors start to blend. You can mix them really well on your palette and then take it to the paper. But I also found that they mixed really cleanly on the paper as well. And if you are like a loose floral artist, I do believe I've seen that in based on me trying to do loose floors myself, I've noticed that I tend to do a lot of mixing on the actual paper. And with some paints, that can cause an issue, especially if they're full of fillers, if they're full of optical brighteners, because they tend to get a little cloudy, which can cause mud to mix quickly. That's not something you're going to experience from this set at all. I was really pleased with that. They reacted really well to the salt, although most paints do. But they gave me really nice texture. Although you don't really have to push that granulation with the salt. Most neutrals, or most artists, let me say it like that, that I know who mix neutrals tend to go for colors that are exact opposite. I've seen a heavy percentage of them use ultramarine blue and your burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, your burnt umber in order to mix their neutrals. And simply because you're using that ultramarine blue, it's already going to give you a mixture that has natural granulation to it. So using the salt was not something that I had to do, but I was happy to see that, like most other watercolors, they do react really well to creating texture with salt. And you can use that technique for like sand, for like creating frost on windows, for creating specks into texture into your leaves, into your backgrounds. There's so many different use for the salt into watercolor technique, and these are going to work well with that. Now, I decided after, not sure which one I did first. Maybe it was this one. I don't know. But after doing one, I decided, okay, let's pull them apart specifically and literally swatch them out into different temperatures. And I had absolutely no problems at all mixing these. They flowed so well into each other. I love the way they blend. You can force a mixture or you can let them flow naturally where they'll do their own blending, but you'll still be able to see the two initial colors used. Um, Very bright and saturated. This was done, I don't know, a week ago, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I don't think it's lost any of its saturation from its initial drying stage. And let me be clear, I have not had these put up in any type of a sketchbook. They have literally been sitting out on my other creation desk in the open, which does get direct sunlight onto it. And I haven't experienced, so this hasn't. And I'm just saying, like, even though it's only been about a week and a half, 2 weeks, there still should be some type of effect from the UV rays. If the light fastness did not stand up to what they say it is. So I'm willing to bag this on its light fast ratings. Although the testing period was only about 2 weeks and it's not your standard light fast testing. So take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. Let's take a look at some of the things that I've done with the paints. Get all of this moved out the way. As far as the pigments are concerned, the reason I'm not really going too deep into the pigments is for this reason. I will go ahead and assure you that most of them are single pigment. And most of the single pigments that I run across, I don't have any questions pertaining to the stability of the pigment. Now, are there some in here that I feel like, well, maybe they didn't have to do that, they didn't have to go that way? Of course they are. I have not run across one set yet that I don't feel that way about one color or another. But overall, the pigmentation makeup of this set is stable. I believe what they're saying. Now, that's just me. You may have a different experience. You may get it and do the research and come to a different conclusion. But for me in the thrifty house, I'm standing behind Paul Ruben's fifth generation. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that I do recommend the paints. I think that they are an amazing paint that are super economical for what they are, considering the fact that they are professional paint, especially when you compare them to the price point of other professional paints. We're getting there. So let's see, what have I painted with these things? I'm trying to make sure I grab everything that I've painted with them. I think this may be it. Is this it? No, this can't be it. I just don't remember where the other one is at the moment. But never mind you that. We're going to be painting with them today anyway. So, first thing I painted with them was back during Inktober, and I did Patreon Live. This was Creation Station. We did the fuchsia. This is a fuchsia flower. So this is just beautiful. Look how they dry. They're so gorgeous. Ugh, they are. They're so gorgeous. I am in love with them. I like them just as much as I like their first rendition, to the point where we may end up making a 48 half pan palette, so I can have all the Paul Ruben paints in one place, mixing their second generation 24 half pan with their fifth generation 24 half pan to make one massive set. That's how much I like both of them. That may happen. That may happen, friends. As a matter of fact, I just got in some products that I ordered from Palm Street from Christy Rice, and one of them, because these are no longer available on her website and they're no longer available on Amazon either. This one has been pulled because it's being redesigned. It has another print, but this is the botanical, and I happened to get my hands on one of these palettes on Palm Street. So I'm going to be using this one to put these paints in the second generation paints all together. You guys know I love making myself a master palette and condensing stuff down. Love doing that. Like I did the Durant products, I'm going to do that to the Paul Ruben professional paints that I have here as well. So yes, the first thing I did with them was the fuchsia. Worked really well, blend really well. They went really nicely with the inking. I didn't have any issues at all with any flow, any blending, any layering. They just have this really, it's now this is Light Wish 100% cotton paper. I will say I have not used them on anything that's not 100% cotton. I will say that. But lately here, most of my papers tend to have switched over to that. I'm not finding many cellulose papers left in my stash anymore. I think maybe I've used them all to make journals and things with, but whatever have you. They worked really well taking on uh, the bleed proof that I used as far as the highlights were concerned. So yes, really nice. Enjoyed this one. And the next thing I did is when we set out to test the Soho Urban Artist stretched watercolor paper. Now this one was a little different for me. I was scared going into this one because this stretched paper, which resembles a canvas, is actually hot pressed, something I do not paint on a lot. But I was really pleased with the way this came out. I set out to paint glass because I had not painted glass in a while. It's been a minute. I still, I'm not sure if I'm going to do the, I've been kind of throwing around the idea of putting together a glass class. Try saying it like 3 times fast. Um, but I haven't really decided yet. And I've thrown around the idea of putting together a beginner gouache class. I've thrown around a couple of class ideas that have not come into fruition just yet. But we'll see. I need to find a platform that hosts them and all that good stuff. Both experiences I loved. Absolutely no problems. Layered, blended, well. I don't have anything. I don't have anything bad to say about the paints. I mean, do I think they are the best quality paint I've ever run across? No. Do I think that they are an amazing quality paint and they fall into top tier from what I have tried over the 5 or 6 years I've been testing and painting and reviewing with professional watercolors? Um, Definitely. We're going to do this lift test real quick here. Then we're going to do a composition today with these paints. I'm not scrubbing too hard. This is actually not the right type of scrubber. And this is nylon. The white hair type scrubber is more. So you can lift out. You're going to have some staining. We're going to have some that lift. I did try to shoot for colors that I knew would, stain as I do the lift test. And I think that that's pretty decent lifting considering the fact it's a professional watercolor and you're supposed to have different levels of liftability or different levels of staining, should I say, when it comes to your paints. So yes, right on par as far as I'm concerned. So, friends, this is where we're going to leave this. I will be finishing this up in Patreon tonight. So, if you are a Patreon member, you can come on over tonight at 8 p.m. into the Creation Station, and we will be continuing to work on both of these illustrations and getting them to completion with two different mediums. One that we've already reviewed today here live, which I hope you guys enjoyed. As I said earlier, wonderful set of paints. They are definitely on my recommendation list. They're going to pop you for about $40, $45. You're going to get 24 beautiful colors with 97% of those colors being one single pigment transparent color. So not a set that I feel like you can go wrong on at all in any shape, form, or fashion. Yeah, they are in my top five. They're in my top five. They're in my top five of professional paints that I've tried. So definitely on the recommendation list. So we'll be finishing this up with this set. And as far as the other flower is concerned, we are tackling it with a set of watercolor pastels that we have yet to review. So definitely come on over, check that out. Other than that, friends, thank you so very much for joining me. It is always a pleasure. I feel like you guys are the lifeblood. So without you, there would be no Thrifty, there would be no Defiant Art, there would be no Thrifty channel or corner of the art world. So thank you so very much for all of your continued support from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. If you have not subscribed, if you happen to be catching the video in syndication and you haven't subscribed, new to the channel, listen, hit that subscription button and that notification bell so you'll know when I upload, when I go live. I hopefully will be bringing you guys a lot of new great content throughout the rest of the year, and the things that I have planned for the new year. Hopefully, it's just going to blow your mind. So definitely stay tuned for that. You're going to check the video description once the live has been edited. So not in the next hour or so, but once the live has been edited, especially for those that are catching it in replay, the video description will have all of the relevant links, including the link for the paint set if you want to pick it up, and other things like Patreon if you want to check that out. Great art community. The Defiant Art website, I always encourage you guys to go check that out, see what's going on over there, what's listed, what's new, what's rolling, what's posted. So, yeah. Thank you again so much for joining me, my friends. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, every single live, every time we depart, just keep creating.